At its height, Britain ruled nearly a quarter of the planet. Its navy controlled the oceans. Its factories supplied global markets. Its financial system underwrote world trade. Britain was not simply powerful. It was structurally dominant. And yet, within a few decades, the empire dissolved, not through sudden collapse, but through a slow transformation of the world itself. Empires rarely disappear because they implode. More often, they decline because the system that sustained them changes. Britain's story is not one of immediate weakness, but of relative decline. Britain remained wealthy, industrialized, militarily capable, but others were rising faster. Britain's supremacy rested first on industry. It industrialized early and dominated global manufacturing. But early leadership created a paradox. Britain's factories were vast, but aging. Its machines productive, but outdated. Meanwhile, late industrializers built newer systems from the ground up. The United States, on the other hand, mastered scale, standardized parts, assembly line production, and had a vast internal market due to high migration. Then came Germany, who mastered efficiency, science-driven industry, advanced chemicals, modern steel production. Britain had invented the first industrial economy, and its rivals were perfecting the second. That's why we say Britain did not collapse. It lost its margin of superiority. Naval power had secured Britain's empire, but dominance required maintenance. Germany's naval expansion forced Britain into an arms race. Each new battleship rendered the previous generation obsolete. Supremacy now demanded relentless investment. Defense spending surged. Strategic anxiety replaced confidence. Scale had begun to reverse. The empire that symbolized strength increasingly consumed resources simply to sustain itself. Then came the First World War. World War I accelerated pressures already underway. Britain financed victory by liquidating overseas assets and borrowing at unprecedented scale. The consequence of this is that Britain emerged victorious, but no longer the world's banker, as it had become a debtor. The victory preserved its empire, but weakened its foundations. The global system grew increasingly unstable. Economic crises, debt cycles, currency tensions. Britain attempted to restore its pre-war financial order, but the world had shifted. Economic gravity was moving westward. While still dealing with this came the Second World War, which imposed absolute strain. At this point, debt reached overwhelming levels and was mostly gotten from the United States. Infrastructure suffered severe damage from German bombardments. Industrial capacity was exhausted as manufacturing factories were being run for 6 years without maintenance, and some had also become obsolete. Economic recovery required austerity, and so they exported all they produced in other to pay off their debt, which created a hunger crisis at home that led to rationing of food, clothing, etc. For the first time, empire competed directly with national survival. Guns abroad, or welfare at home. That is, should they spend the limited money on maintaining millions of troops in India, Africa, and the Middle East to keep the empire, or should they spend that same money building the National Health Service, NHS, and subsidized housing for the 4 million people whose homes were bombed? Hence, the empire was lost because Britain realized that keeping the empire would lead to a revolution at home. They chose welfare at home. After 1945, the global financial architecture was redesigned. The US dollar became the system's anchor as a result of the Bretton Woods Conference. New York replaced London as the center of capital flows. Britain did not become poor, it became structurally dependent. Imperial rule now faced a deeper contradiction. Empires usually rely on hierarchy, but the 20th century legitimized equality. Though mechanisms such as mass education, political mobilization, national self-determination, the empire became ideologically unstable. It is important to note that India was not simply another colony. It was central to imperial logistics, economics, identity. But as we said, due to austerity, Britain could no longer keep hold of it because after the Second World War, Britain owed India over $1 billion and had helped India create a large military for the aim of using them to aid Britain. On top of this, the United States, as part of the Marshall Plan and the loans Britain took from her, pushed for decolonization. The U.S. wanted open-door trade with India, which was difficult as long as Britain maintained imperial trade barriers. India's independence signaled something irreversible. The final blow was the Suez Crisis in 1956. The Suez Crisis did not destroy British power. It revealed its limits.
A single phone call from US to Britain revealed that the empire could no longer act militarily without American approval. The empire was no longer a governing reality. It was a memory. The British Empire did not collapse. It became incompatible with modern reality. Empires do not always die in catastrophe. Sometimes, the world simply moves on.